Hi everybody, welcome back to On the Wing Supply. For this video, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how we make our belts. For this belt, I'm going to be using a side of English bridle leather from Wicked & Craig. This is 8 to 10 ounces. If you haven't already, you're going to want to cut a straight line using a straight edge. I just used this small straight edge here and then just went down a few times and made sure I had a perfectly straight line here. The way that we're actually going to cut the strap is by using a strap cutter like this. As you can see, there are measurements here. We are going to be making a 1-inch wide belt today, so I'm just going to loosen up this screw on the back and setting it to 1 inch. So once you get it started, make sure the leather is right up against the wood and then just pull it through. So now that you have your strap cut, you're going to want to bevel all of the edges. I have the simple number 1 edge beveler. I pretty much use the number 1 for everything that I do. And all you do is put it on the edge here and then just take that edge off. And the reason to do this is that once you burnish the edges, you don't want that to kind of mushroom out. So now that all of the edges are beveled, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dye the edges. So what I have here is a marker that I filled up with a black dye, and let me show you the dye that I use. And so I'm using Pro Dye Black from Phoebings, and I just get these markers. They come empty and I fill them up, and they have a tip on the end that essentially allows me to just go and paint it on like a marker. So now I'm gonna cover both sides, all the edges, in black dye. Alright, and now that the edges are dyed, they look good, but the edges still are not smooth. It is still a rough cut from using the strap cutter. The next thing I'm going to use is Toconol. This will give you a nice smooth glassy finish on all of your edges. So all you do here is open it up. It almost kind of looks like Elmer's glue. And I'll just start on a small part of the strap, take a little bit on my finger, put it along the edge, and just soak it in to, I kind of work in about 1 foot segments. So put a little bit on, make sure it's all over, and then I just take a piece of canvas and rub it back and forth, and that will smooth out that edge and make it look really nice. Then you can take it a step further and use a burnisher and just take that back and forth as well on the edge. And you can see here, this outside is the finished edge, and this is still the unfinished edge here. Okay, I'm going to walk you through how to put together a belt keeper. So this piece, all I did is cut it thin. I cut it to about 3/8 of an inch. 3/8 of an inch wide, same thing, use my strap cutter. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this, wrap it around the belt, and just make sure you've got a little bit of room of overlap there. And I'm just going to mark that with my awl. So now I have my cut line. So mine's just at about 3.5 inches. Now I'm going to skive down the last about 1/2 inch on each of these sides. So what you want to do here is take your skiving knife, start at about 1/2 inch from the end, and just work it back and forth, and then trying to keep that slope from here all the way to the opposite bottom edge of the leather on the opposite side. And this just takes a lot of practice. I'm still working on it as well. But as you can see, now I have a nice skived down piece. And the thought is that we want to fold this over. So now I'm going to skive the opposite side here to meet up so it stays a perfect oval. Alright, so now I have a piece that looks like this, one skived this way, one skived this way. So now when I wrap this around, it's going to meet up and it's not going to have a thick spot on the back. So what you want to do is just take a small dab of glue, put a dot here, and then I even that out, apply it to the other side. So now that we have glue on both sides, I'm just going to fold this over. Alright, so we're almost there, but not done yet. This won't hold over time, so there are belt keeper staples you could put in here. However, I like to put just a few threads through here. So what I'm going to do now is take this, just put it on the corner, and I'm going to want to put these two prongs, it's a 2-prong stitching iron, and I'm going to put it through so it goes through both pieces, and then I'm going to sew that up so that it stays together. So I'm just using some black thread and 2 of these stitching needles. I am not going to run through a full tutorial right now on how to stitch. There are plenty of videos out there, and I will probably also make a video later on showing you different techniques on how to stitch. Okay, so now that I have this stitched up, I am going to, this is a thread zap too. You could also just cut the thread and burn it with a lighter. So I'm going to use this, cut those. Now I'm going to melt down the threads in here and just push them down, and that will lock the threads in. Alright, so there you have it. What we want to do is trace on our template for our belt. So this is the side where the belt buckle is going to go, and I have these laser cut acrylic templates that I've designed and cut out on my laser. You could also just print them out on a computer and then cut them out by hand. I will put the files, a link to the files in the description, because I had a hard time finding them. Most people will charge you for those files, so I'll put the free files, and then I may even list laser cut templates for a small fee on the website as well. But all you want to do here is line it up right on the strap, so right in the center. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our awl and we're just going to put the markings for each hole, and then the slot where the buckle will come through. Now it is all marked out on the leather. Now the next thing to do is you're going to want to get something to hammer on. I have these hole punches. I got a cheap set online. This one is a 4, so probably 4 millimeter, and then a little bit smaller one for where the buckle will come through. I haven't made the 1-inch wide belt yet, so I'm going to see if this is wide enough. If not, then I'll just stick with this. And all you do is you put it on each hole, and then you hammer through. So they make punches that will cut out the perfect slot for you. I do not have that. So what I'm going to do is take the hole punch, and I'm going to punch out each end of the slot. So as you can see, we have all of our holes cut out. Now I'm going to take an X-Acto and cut out and connect those two holes, which will create our slot. That doesn't have to be perfect, because it is going to be folded over here, so it's not going to matter quite as much there. I am going to take the edge beveler again and just bevel this edge here. Just when it folds, I don't want it to mushroom out once again. Last step on this, I'm going to take some Toconol, and I'm actually going to put it on the end of my burnishing tool and just get some inside of the slot here. And then I take my piece of canvas, can slide it through here. And then just clean up the inside of that slot. I have these corner punches that I am going to use now and line it up with the center here, and it just rounds off the end of that. Okay, so now that we have this rounded off, once again, we are going to want to clean up that edge. This will be folded on the inside of the belt, but I still like to make that look clean. Now we are going to go ahead and start the assembly of the hardware. So what I have are Chicago screws. So one side is flat, one side has a flat head screwdriver, and then it threads together. These are good because it allows you to change the buckle in the future if you want to do so. I will put a little bit of this Loctite 242. It allows it to be removable, so in the future if something happens with the hardware, it starts tarnishing, something like that, you're able to take it off, put on a new buckle, and then put these Chicago screws back. So you want to put your buckle on like this, so that when you fold it over, everything sits nicely. I'll take a dot of Loctite, put it inside this open end here. Then I'll take the longer end and push this through, just like that. And that allows me to line up this top so I can see the exact opening. And I'm going to use my Poundo board because it's a little bit more non-slip, so it will hold that flat side of the Chicago screw in place while this side is threading in. So that is our first Chicago screw in. Okay, now I'm going to put the belt keeper on, Slide it all the way down, make sure it's on the correct side as well. Just gonna put it in between there. And now we want to take our next Chicago screws. Same thing. Alright, so now we have our belt with the keeper, our Chicago screws on, and their thread lock, and the belt slides through. If this is too tight, you can just take 2 pieces of leather and pull them through and just let it sit for 15-20 minutes, and it'll stretch this keeper out so it fits perfectly. For the next step, we need to add the opposite end hole. So again, I have a template. I typically measure the belt from the end of the buckle to the center hole. I leave 5 holes 1 inch apart. So this one we're going to make at 30 inches long. So each hole I'm going to use a 3mm punch. And finally we're going to cut this strap. So I'm just going to cut off the excess here. What I like to do is cut straight across at the peak and then work at it as 2 sides. So start my cut far away and slowly move that right onto my trace line, not necessarily going all the way through right away, and just doing a few passes there. And now I will use some sandpaper just to clean that up a bit.